The morning sun cast long shadows across the Kennedy Space Center when the massive form of the Eternal Vigilance first appeared in Earth's orbit. The ship emerged from hyperspace with a grace that belied its enormous size, its crystalline hull refracting sunlight in rainbow cascades across the Florida coastline. Traffic stopped. Phones emerged from pockets. Millions of photos were taken, but none could truly capture the majesty of humanity's first contact with the Galactic Council's flagship. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck, her dark eyes fixed on the vessel above. Her fingers unconsciously touched the quantum mechanics tablet in her lab coat pocket, a habit she developed during years of research. Behind her, footsteps approached, the measured pace of military boots on polished floor. Quite a sight, isn't it? Commander James Rodriguez stopped beside her, his Space Force uniform pristine despite the early hour. Makes our orbital stations look like children's toys. Sarah nodded, her analytical mind already racing. The hull configuration is fascinating. See how it curves there, at the bow? That's not just for aesthetics. Notice that too, James replied, a slight smile playing at the corner of his mouth. Reminds me of old submarine designs, but with some interesting variations. Their observation was interrupted by the arrival of United Earth Council Representative Maya Patel. Her traditional Indian formal wear a splash of color in the sterile environment. Dr. Chen, Commander Rodriguez, they've made contact. The Galactic Council has selected you both for their traditional tour. Sarah's eyebrows rose. Both of us? I thought they'd only want military personnel. Maya handed them each a data pad. Apparently, your recent paper on quantum field harmonics caught their attention, Dr. Chen. They specifically requested you by name. The data pads displayed their mission brief. The Galactic Council, as part of their millennial tradition, offered tours of their flagship to representatives of newly spacefaring species. It was meant as both a welcome and, though not explicitly stated, a demonstration of power. When do we leave? James asked, already scanning the protocols listed. In 3 hours, Maya replied. Their show will dock at the orbital platform. And please remember, you represent not just your nations, but all of humanity. As Maya left, Sarah and James shared a knowing look. They had both seen the same thing in the mission brief. The subtle condescension in the Council's message, the way they referred to humanity as an admirably quick-learning young species. The next 3 hours passed in a blur of briefings and preparations. As they boarded the space elevator to the orbital platform, Sarah found herself reviewing everything she knew about Council technology, which was frustratingly little. Their few public demonstrations had shown capabilities far beyond current human achievement, but something about their technical explanations had always bothered her. You're thinking too hard, James commented as they ascended through the atmosphere. I can hear the gears turning from here. Sarah smiled, just wondering why they chose us. A physicist and a rescue pilot seems an odd combination. Maybe they think we're harmless, James suggested, his tone light but his eyes serious. A scientist interested in theory and a pilot who specializes in saving people rather than combat. The elevator docked with a gentle bump. Through the station's panoramic windows, they could see the Council shuttle approaching, a sleek vessel that seemed to flow through space rather than fly through it. Its surface rippled with colors that shouldn't be possible in the vacuum of space. As they waited in the airlock, Sarah straightened her formal attire, ready to play the part of awestruck primitives. James adjusted his uniform one final time. Just remember what they say in reconnaissance training. Sometimes the best way to be invisible is to be exactly what people expect to see. The airlock cycled, and before them stood their guide, a towering crystalline being whose faceted form caught and reflected the station's lights in mesmerizing patterns. The being's voice resonated in their minds rather than their ears. Welcome, children of Earth. I am Ambassador Luminox. Are you prepared to witness the greatest achievements of galactic civilization? Sarah and James stepped forward together, their expressions carefully schooled into looks of appropriate wonder and respect. The game had begun. The interior of the Eternal Vigilance defied human architectural expectations. Corridors curved in ways that shouldn't have been structurally sound, yet Sarah could feel the underlying mathematical precision in every arch and intersection. James walked beside her, his trained eye noting every security checkpoint and patrol pattern while maintaining an expression of simple appreciation. The quantum drive chamber is particularly impressive. Ambassador Luminox's thoughts resonated in their minds as they approached a massive doorway. Though I suspect its principles may be somewhat beyond your current understanding. Sarah kept her face carefully neutral, even as her mind raced to the sight before them. The chamber was enormous, easily the size of a football stadium, with a crystalline core that pulsed with possibilities. Energy patterns shifted and flowed in ways that nearly everyone on Earth would consider impossible, nearly everyone except Sarah. Amazing, she breathed, and it wasn't entirely an act. The technology was remarkable, but what truly amazed her was how they'd missed something so obvious. The quantum resonance patterns had a fundamental flaw, one that any first-year thermodynamics student might notice if they weren't distracted by the impressive light show. Their new guide, senior engineer Ziltri, a being that seemed to be made of flowing liquid metal, gestured proudly at the core. This single chamber provides power for the entire vessel. Nothing in your technology comes close to this efficiency. James whistled appreciatively, playing his part. Remarkable. How do you handle power distribution during combat maneuvers? The question seemed innocent enough, but Sarah caught the slight tension in his posture. He'd seen something too. Observe, Siltri manipulated a control panel, and holographic displays sprang to life around them. The power grid automatically compensates for any tactical demands. The system is perfect. Perfect was exactly what it wasn't, Sarah realized. The power fluctuations followed rigid patterns, predictable once you understood the underlying mathematics. She had already mentally sketched 3 ways to improve the efficiency by at least 40%. Their tour continued to the weapon systems, where James' attention sharpened even further. The targeting arrays were incredible, capable of calculations that Earth's best computers would take years to process. Yet they lacked the creative adaptability that Earth's combat simulators had developed out of necessity. These response times are extraordinary, James commented, carefully phrasing his observation as praise. Do the targeting systems ever need to compensate for unusual environmental conditions? Siltri's liquid metal form rippled with what might have been pride. The systems are based on 10,000 years of development. They handle all known combat scenarios perfectly. Known scenarios, Sarah noted, not unexpected ones, not the kind of chaos that humanity have learned to embrace and adapt to. During a brief rest period in what appeared to be a recreational area, Sarah and James shared a quiet moment while their guides discussed something in private. Did you see the power overlap in Section 3? Sarah murmured, apparently admiring a floating art piece. James nodded slightly. Just like the blind spot in their point defense grid. They're so convinced of their superiority that they've stopped looking for improvements. Their quantum field harmonics are actually rather elegant, Sarah admitted, but they've never considered combining them with basic thermodynamic principles. It's like they developed their technology in a vacuum, never looking sideways at other scientific disciplines. Their conversation was interrupted as Ambassador Luminox and Siltri returned. We hope you're finding the tour educational. The ambassador's thoughts carried a hint of indulgence. Though some of these concepts must seem quite advanced. Oh yes, Sarah smiled warmly. Every moment is a revelation. It was entirely true, though not in the way their hosts assumed. As they moved on to the next section, Sarah's mind was already filling with equations, while James mentally cataloged every tactical weakness he'd observed. The Council had created something magnificent, but their very success had become their limitation. Their host had forgotten one of humanity's greatest strengths, the ability to look at the impossible and ask, what if we tried it differently? The energy distribution center of the Eternal Vigilance hummed with a sound that shouldn't have been possible in the carefully controlled atmosphere. Sarah's fingers twitched as she resisted the urge to take notes. Before them, rivers of pure energy flowed through crystalline conduits, creating patterns that seemed to defy the laws of physics. "This is where we manage power flow throughout the ship," Siltree explained, their liquid metal form reflecting the dancing energies. "The quantum harmonics ensure perfect distribution with zero loss." Zero loss. Sarah almost laughed. The inefficiencies were subtle, yet to her trained eye, they blazed like signal flares. The Council's engineers had created something magnificent, but they'd forgotten a fundamental principle that every Earth engineer learned in their first year. The laws of thermodynamics always collect their due. "The efficiency is remarkable," Sarah said carefully. "How do you handle thermal bleed during high-energy operations?" Luminoc's crystalline form sparkled with what might have been amusement. "The quantum field configuration eliminates such primitive concerns. Heat is merely another form of energy to be harnessed." James caught Sarah's eye for a fraction of a second. They both recognized the oversight in that statement. Heat wasn't just another form of energy. It was the key to everything the Council had missed. The tour moved to the Tactical Systems Center, where holographic displays showed the positions of every ship in the local sector. James studied the patrol patterns with practiced ease, noting how they followed classical formation theories that Earth's Space Force had already evolved beyond. "Your targeting systems are incredibly precise," James observed, watching a simulation of the ship's main weapons. "Have you ever encountered situations where precision needed to be sacrificed for speed?" Ziltree's form rippled with what might have been confusion. "Why would one ever sacrifice precision? Our systems calculate the perfect solution for every scenario." Perfect solutions. There was that word again. On Earth, perfect solutions had long ago given way to adaptive ones. In the chaos of space, perfection was often the enemy of effectiveness. During a demonstration of the ship's shield harmonics, Sarah noticed something that made her breath catch. The quantum field wasn't just stable, it was too stable. The Council had somehow missed the potential of controlled instability, the power that could be harnessed from carefully managed chaos. "The shield configurations are fascinating," she said, choosing her words with care. "Do they ever need to adapt to unexpected energy signatures?" "The shields recognize and adapt to all known forms of attack," Luminox responded proudly. "They are the product of millennia of refinement." James suppressed a smile. On Earth, known forms of attack was practically an invitation to innovate new ones. Humanity had learned that lesson the hard way through centuries of warfare and competition. The Council, in their long peace, had forgotten that necessity was the mother of invention. As they paused for refreshments in an observation lounge, Sarah and James found a moment to exchange observations while their hosts were distracted by a minor technical consultation. "Their entire power grid runs on quantum harmonics," Sarah whispered, pretending to admire the view of Earth below. "But they've never considered introducing controlled entropy to boost efficiency. It's like they discovered quantum mechanics without ever fully understanding thermodynamics." James nodded slightly. Same with their tactical systems. Perfect responses to known threats, but almost no ability to improvise. One unexpected move would throw their entire defense doctrine into chaos. "Should we be concerned?" Sarah asked, her voice barely audible. "No," James replied, his expression thoughtful. "They're not hostile. Just stuck. They've had power for so long they've forgotten how to question their own assumptions." Their conversation ended as Luminox approached, their crystalline form refracting the starlight from nearby windows. "I trust you're finding our technology suitably impressive." "Oh yes," Sarah replied truthfully. "Every system shows such commitment to established principles." As they moved on to the next section, both humans carried within them pieces of a puzzle their hosts didn't even know existed. The Council had built their technology like a perfect crystal, beautiful, precise, and utterly unable to adapt to change. They had created a masterpiece of engineering, never realizing that perfection itself could become a weakness. The grand dining hall of the Eternal Vigilance sparkled with crystalline chandeliers that doubled as quantum field stabilizers. Sarah and James sat at a table designed to accommodate various alien physiologies, surrounded by curious council members who had come to observe the primitive humans at their meal. "Tell us about Earth's space exploration," requested a being composed of swirling gases contained within an environmental suit. "We understand you've only recently achieved rudimentary interplanetary travel." Sarah dabbled at her mouth with a napkin, buying time to choose her words carefully. "We're still learning," she said modestly, "though our recent advances in fusion technology have helped considerably." From across the table, a young council member named Zilara watched the humans with unusual intensity. Unlike her crystalline elders, her form was still somewhat translucent, indicating her relative youth. She noted how the humans' questions, while seemingly innocent, followed distinct patterns. "Your rescue missions are quite interesting," Commander Rodriguez, Zilara commented, "especially your solution to the Mars colony crisis last year." James smiled diplomatically. "Sometimes the simplest solutions are the best. We just had to think outside standard emergency protocols." Zilara's crystalline form flickered with interest. "Yet your approach violated several established rescue paradigms. How did you know it would work?" "We didn't," James admitted. "But when standard procedures fail, humans tend to get creative." At the head of the table, Senior Admiral Casullan, a massive being of living metal similar to Siltree, but with elaborate patterns denoting rank, dismissed Zilara's concerns with a graceful wave. "Primitive solutions for primitive problems. Once humanity achieves proper technological advancement, such improvisation will be unnecessary." Sarah caught the slight narrowing of James's eyes at the word primitive. She quickly drew attention away from his reaction by asking about the quantum field stabilizers above them, noting how the Admiral's patronizing explanation revealed 3 new potential improvements to Earth's own quantum research. Later, in a private meeting chamber, Zilara presented her observations to the Council's Security Committee. The humans' questions suggest a deeper understanding than they should possess, especially Dr. Chen's inquiries about quantum field harmonics. "You worry too much, young one," Admiral Casullan's form rippled with amusement. "Their questions merely show an enthusiastic curiosity. What could a species that barely reached their moon possibly understand about our technology?" "With respect, Admiral," Zilara persisted, "their history shows a pattern of rapid technological development. Their adaptation rate exceeds all known models. Their development follows standard patterns," another council member chimed in. "They simply haven't reached the plateau of true understanding yet." Meanwhile, Sarah and James toured the engineering decks with Siltree, their questions growing increasingly specific. Sarah's inquiry about power fluctuations during quantum field alignment led to a detailed explanation that confirmed her theories about potential efficiency improvements. "Your interest in our technical systems is admirable," Siltree commented, their form rippling with pride. "Though some concepts must seem like magic to you. Any sufficiently advanced technology would," Sarah agreed, thinking of Arthur C. Clarke's famous quote, "Though sometimes the principles aren't as incomprehensible as they first appear." James steered the conversation toward emergency protocols, his tactical mind assembling a complete picture of the Council's response patterns. Every answer revealed both the impressive advancement and the rigid limitations of their technology. In her private chamber that evening, Zilara reviewed the humans' tour recordings. She noted how Dr. Chen's eyes lingered on specific engineering displays, how Commander Rodriguez's questions about tactical systems followed a subtle but deliberate pattern. Her report to the senior council members sat uncompleted on her terminal as she debated whether to voice her concerns more strongly. The humans, meanwhile, prepared for their final day aboard the Eternal Vigilance. As they reviewed their mental notes in their guest quarters, both knew they had seen enough. The Council's technology was incredible, but its very perfection had become a cage of assumptions and limitations. Limitations that humanity, with its chaotic, adaptive approach to problem-solving, was uniquely positioned to transcend. They just had to maintain their facade of wide-eyed wonder for one more day. 3 months after their return from the Eternal Vigilance, the Quantum Development Facility in New Zealand hummed with activity. Sarah stood before a holographic display that showed energy patterns eerily similar to those she'd seen on the Council's ship, but with crucial differences. "Run the simulation again," she instructed her team, watching as the quantum field harmonics danced across the screen. This time, instead of fighting against entropy, the system embraced it, channeling the natural chaos into controlled efficiency. "Power output is 300% above baseline," reported Dr. Patel, her chief engineer. "And that's with minimal energy loss through heat dissipation." She paused, shaking her head in amazement. "It's so simple once you see it. How did the Council miss this?" Sarah smiled, remembering the pristine, perfect systems of the Eternal Vigilance. They were looking up at the stars so long they forgot to look sideways at other solutions. Sometimes the best answers come from combining different fields. Across the Pacific, at the Space Force Advanced Development Center in Alaska, James stood in a simulator pod, running combat scenarios against programmed Council tactics. The holographic displays showed a dance of ships and energy weapons, but with a fluidity that would have shocked their alien visitors. "Scenario complete," the computer announced. "Defense penetration successful. Council response patterns predicted with 97% accuracy." Lieutenant Commander Chen, no relation to Sarah, whistled as she reviewed the data. "Their tactical systems are amazing, but they're too perfect. They don't account for controlled chaos in battle formations." James stepped out of the simulator, his expression thoughtful. "That's because they've never needed to. When you're at the top for too long, you forget how to adapt." The prototype ship Phoenix took shape in orbital shipyards, its design incorporating the best of both worlds. Council quantum technology merged with human innovation. Its power core combined quantum harmonics with thermodynamic principles in ways that would have seemed impossible just months ago. Sarah walked through the engine room during its final assembly, running her hand along a conduit that pulsed with controlled quantum chaos. The engineers had nicknamed it the entropy engine, a term that would have horrified the Council's perfectionist engineers. "Final tests are complete," her assistant reported, handing her a tablet. "Power efficiency is holding at triple Council standard, and the adaptable shield configurations are performing beyond expectations." In the command center, James reviewed the tactical systems with his team. The targeting computers showed the same precision as Council technology, but added something new: the ability to learn and adapt in real time. "Look at this," he pointed to a simulation replay. "The system doesn't just calculate perfect solutions, it creates new ones based on changing conditions. It's what kept humanity alive during our own conflicts, and now it's built into our technology." Earth's other ships were quickly retrofitted with the new hybrid technology, not to prepare for war, but to explore the galaxy more efficiently. Humanity had learned its lessons about conflict. The goal wasn't to surpass the Council, but to add their own unique perspective to galactic civilization. During a test flight near Jupiter, the Phoenix demonstrated its capabilities by rescuing a stranded mining vessel in conditions that would have stymied traditional Council ships. The quantum thermodynamic hybrid drive allowed it to operate in the gas giant's intense radiation fields, while the adaptive shields protected it from unexpected solar flare activity. Sarah and James watched the rescue from Phoenix Bridge, sharing a knowing look. The ship's systems hummed with energy that was both precise and adaptable, controlled yet capable of evolution. "They'll notice eventually," James said quietly, watching the mining vessel's crew board through the adaptive docking system, another innovation born from combining Council tech with human ingenuity. Sarah nodded, her eyes on the quantum efficiency readings that would have seemed impossible during their tour of the Eternal Vigilance. "Yes, but by then they'll understand that we're not here to compete. We're here to contribute." As the Phoenix turned back toward Earth, its entropy engine purring with perfectly controlled chaos, both of them knew that the galaxy was about to change. not through conflict or competition, but through humanity's unique gift, the ability to look at the perfect and ask, what if? The Council patrol ship Unwavering Doctrine cruised through the Kuiper Belt on a routine survey mission. Its commander, a veteran crystalline, being named Pixthor, barely paid attention to the sensor readings. Monitoring primitive human space activity hardly seemed worth his centuries of experience, until the sensors detected something impossible. Captain, his sensor officer's gaseous form swirled with agitation. We're picking up quantum field signatures that don't match any known configuration. Pixthor shifted his crystalline form toward the display. The readings showed energy patterns that seemed to dance between order and chaos, maintaining impossible efficiency levels through what appeared to be controlled entropy. Check the sensor calibration, he ordered. These readings cannot be correct. Before they could comply, a new ship appeared on their screens. Its design was clearly of human origin, but it moved with a grace that should have been beyond their capabilities. The vessel's power signature pulsed with a rhythm that somehow merged quantum harmonics with thermal dynamics in ways that violated every known principle of Council engineering. "This is the Earth vessel Phoenix," a calm voice transmitted on standard frequencies. "We detected a damaged mining ship in the vicinity. Do you require assistance with rescue operations?" Pixthor's form flickered with shock. The human ship wasn't just communicating, it was operating complex sensor sweeps while maintaining a quantum field that rivaled the eternal vigilance itself. Even more impossibly, it was doing so with significantly less energy expenditure. "Negative Earth vessel," he responded automatically, his training taking over. "This sector is under Council jurisdiction. Please withdraw to your assigned space." The Phoenix acknowledged politely but didn't immediately retreat. Instead, it executed a maneuver that should have destabilized its quantum core, smoothly transitioning between space normal and quantum states in a way that made Pixthor's sensor officer chime in alarm. They watched as the human ship located the damaged mining vessel, a task that would have taken Council ships hours to accomplish in the cluttered Kuiper Belt, and effortlessly adapted its shields to match the damaged ship's unstable energy signature. "Impossible?" Pixthor whispered, watching the humans perform a rescue that violated half a dozen Council safety protocols while achieving better results than standard procedures could have managed. In the Council's central chambers, the emergency session stretched into its fifth hour. Zilara stood before the assembled leaders, her earlier warnings now carrying the weight of vindication. "The humans haven't simply replicated our technology," she explained, showing holographic comparisons of energy signatures. "They've transformed it. Their understanding of quantum mechanics, combined with their own scientific principles, has created something entirely new." Admiral Cuxullen's metallic form rippled with distress. "How could they have developed this so quickly? They were barely able to reach their own moon when we first contacted them." Zilara brought up footage from the Eternal Vigilance tour. "Look at Dr. Chen's expression here during the quantum core demonstration. She wasn't confused, she was analyzing. And Commander Rodriguez wasn't admiring our tactical displays. He was identifying adaptation points." The Council members watched in dawning comprehension as Zilara played more footage, showing the subtle signs they'd all missed. The careful questions, the thoughtful observations, the moments of quiet exchange between the two humans, all of it now carried new meaning. "Their ships are now operating at efficiency levels we thought impossible," another Council member reported. "Their quantum fields incorporate principles of controlled chaos that our engineers insist shouldn't work, and yet they do with remarkable stability." In Earth orbit, the Phoenix conducted another test flight. Sarah Chen stood on the bridge, monitoring the entropy engine's performance as they prepared to test a new shield configuration. James Rodriguez sat in the command chair, watching the tactical displays show information in ways that would have given Council commanders headaches. "They'll have noticed by now," Sarah commented, reviewing the latest efficiency readings. James nodded, his expression thoughtful. "The question is, will they understand what it means?" As if in answer, 3 council ships emerged from quantum space nearby. But rather than the expected confrontation, their first transmission carried a different tone, one of cautious curiosity. The mask had fallen, but perhaps that wasn't entirely a bad thing. The Singapore Summit Center gleamed in the morning sun, its quantum-enhanced windows automatically adjusting to the changing light. Inside the main conference chamber, representatives from Earth and the Galactic Council sat across from each other, the atmosphere tense but not hostile. Sarah Chen stood before a holographic display, explaining the principles behind the entropy engine with the patience of a born teacher. The key wasn't fighting against chaos, she demonstrated, showing how the quantum fields flowed in controlled patterns. It was understanding how to work with it. Admiral Cuxullen's metallic form shifted in what might have been discomfort, but such imperfection in the quantum harmonics should create catastrophic instability. That's what we thought at first, too. Sarah smiled, adjusting the display to show the deeper patterns. But look at the thermal dynamics at play. The controlled chaos actually increases efficiency by allowing the system to adapt continuously. James Rodriguez stood at a second display, showing tactical simulations that demonstrated the adaptive shield configurations. We took inspiration from Earth's weather patterns, he explained. Perfect order isn't always the strongest approach. Sometimes, flexibility provides better protection than rigid strength. The Council's chief engineer, a being of pure energy contained within a crystalline matrix, moved closer to examine the data. This violates every principle of quantum engineering we've developed over millennia. No, Zalara interjected, her crystalline form gleaming with excitement. It doesn't violate them, it expands them. Just as adding a new action doesn't invalidate mathematics, it opens new possibilities. The Council delegation reviewed the technical data with increasing interest. What had begun as a confrontational meeting about stolen technology had evolved into something closer to a scientific symposium. Your ships achieve 300% better efficiency, one council member noted, their gaseous forms swirling thoughtfully. And the adaptive tactical systems have applications beyond combat. They could revolutionize space rescue operations. Sarah highlighted a particular sequence in the quantum flow patterns. We're not here to compete, she explained. Earth wants to contribute to galactic civilization. Different perspectives can lead to new solutions. James pulled up footage of the Phoenix recent rescue mission. These innovations aren't about military advantage. They're about finding better ways to explore, to help, to grow. The council members conferred privately while the Earth delegation waited. Sarah caught Zalara's eye, noting how the young council member could barely contain her enthusiasm about the technical discussions. Admiral Cuxullen finally spoke for the group. The council has long prided itself on being the pinnacle of technological achievement. Perhaps that pride has become a limitation. Progress rarely follows a single path, Sarah offered diplomatically. Earth's history is full of examples where combining different approaches led to breakthroughs. Your species sees patterns we have overlooked, the energy being acknowledged, connections we never considered because they seemed imperfect. James stepped forward. Imperfection isn't always a flaw. Sometimes it's the key to adaptation, to evolution, to finding new solutions. The meeting continued late into the evening as both sides shared knowledge. The Council's delegation found themselves increasingly intrigued by humanity's approach to problem-solving, while the Earth representatives gained deeper insight into the elegant foundations of Council technology. We should establish a joint research initiative, Zalara suggested, her form practically glowing with excitement. Combine Council precision with human innovation. To everyone's surprise, Admiral Cuxullen agreed. The Council has much to teach, he said, then added with unprecedented humility, and it seems much to learn as well. As the delegates filed out of the conference room, Sarah and James shared a quiet moment by the window. The setting sun painted Singapore's skyline in shades of gold, while above, the first stars became visible. They're adapting better than expected, James observed. Sarah nodded, watching a council shuttle demonstrate its newly modified quantum field as it ascended. Maybe that's the real lesson here. Even after 10,000 years, you never have to stop growing. The entropy engine of the Phoenix, docked in orbit above, pulsed with its unique rhythm of controlled chaos, a symbol of what was possible when different perspectives came together to forge something new. The Eternal Vigilance hung in high Earth orbit, its crystalline hull now shimmering with the subtle patterns of an entropy-enhanced quantum field. 6 months after the Singapore summit, the flagship of the Galactic Council had become a symbol of successful cooperation between humanity and the Council. Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck, but this time as an honored guest rather than a wide-eyed visitor. Beside her, Zalara's crystalline form refracted the light from Earth below, creating rainbow patterns that danced across the deck. The hybrid drive systems have exceeded all expectations, Zalara reported, her tone carrying the excitement of discovery. Energy efficiency is up 400%, and the adaptive shield configurations have already saved 3 ships in the Oort cloud mining operations. Sarah smiled, watching a group of human and council engineers working together in a quantum core chamber below. It's amazing what can happen when different perspectives come together. Your quantum field expertise combined with our thermodynamic principles has opened up possibilities neither of us imagined. In the tactical center, James Rodriguez and Admiral Cullen reviewed the latest data from the Joint Patrol missions. The displays showed Earth ships and Council vessels operating in perfect harmony, their different approaches to space navigation complementing each other. Your adaptive tactical systems have revolutionized our rescue protocols, Cullen admitted, his metallic form reflecting the holographic displays. The recent operation in the Kuiper Belt would have been impossible under our old guidelines. James nodded, highlighting a particularly successful mission. And your precision calculations have helped us refine our chaos theory applications. It turns out the perfect balance lies somewhere between rigid order and adaptive chaos. The newly established Galactic Innovation Center on Luna's surface had become a hub of collaborative research. Council engineers learned to embrace controlled imperfection, while human scientists delved deeper into the elegant mathematics behind quantum harmonics. Look at this, Dr. Patel called out to a group of council researchers, pointing to a simulation of a new hybrid system. By introducing controlled entropy at key points in the quantum field, we can create self-optimizing patterns that evolve with changing conditions. A crystalline council engineer chimed in agreement. And by applying our harmonic principles to stabilize the chaos points, we maintain efficiency while gaining adaptability. It's beautiful. In the council chambers, the Senior Advisory Board made a historic decision. Ambassador Luminox, who had once shown Sarah and James around the Eternal Vigilance with barely concealed condescension, now stood before the Assembly to announce a new protocol. Let it be recorded, his thoughts resonated through the chamber, that the Council's first contact procedures shall be forever changed. We must approach each new species not as teachers, but as fellow explorers, recognizing that different paths to knowledge may reveal truths we have yet to discover. The Phoenix, now joined by a fleet of hybrid drive ships from both Earth and the Council, prepared for its first long-range exploration mission. Sarah and James stood on its bridge, accompanied by Zalara and a team of Council scientists. It's strange to think, James mused, watching the quantum thermal readouts pulse with their unique rhythm, that all this started because the Council thought they were just giving a tour to some primitive humans. Sarah laughed, making final adjustments to the entropy engine settings. Their greatest error turned out to be their greatest opportunity. Sometimes the best way forward is to admit you don't have all the answers. As the fleet prepared for departure, Admiral Cullen transmitted one final message from the Eternal Vigilance. May your journey prove that wisdom can be found in unexpected places, and that true strength lies not in perfection, but in the willingness to grow. The ships engaged their hybrid drives, their quantum fields dancing with controlled chaos as they accelerated toward the unknown. Above Earth, The Eternal Vigilance's hull shimmered with its new entropy-enhanced field, a testament to what was possible when ancient wisdom and fresh perspective came together. The Council's greatest error had not led to conflict or competition, but to something far more valuable: the recognition that every civilization, no matter how young or old, had something unique to contribute to the grand tapestry of galactic knowledge. And somewhere in the vast archives of the Galactic Council, a new entry was added to the First Contact protocols. Never assume that teaching is only possible in one direction.